Wow. That's very humble.
So my mentality is that I think our impact, what the Rwanda Foundation is trying to do with education is actually infantile. I think the first step is our realization that you're going to change people's lives by giving them a choice, the chance to know they have choices. And that comes from literacy, first and foremost. So we are particularly, or I am as well as the foundation, as well as the rest of our team, passionate about people having the capacity to read and write, to know that their life exists beyond their immediate vicinity, to know that they can succeed in whatever endeavors they have, and their lives can change for the positive. And really, that's what for me an education is about. So our first step really was to figure out a way of creating a mentality within ourselves that said this was possible, and then also understanding that the way and manner for us to impact would be not to just do it from a secular point of view or from our own little hub. So I'm really excited that, with the Shapers, you have hubs all over the world, and you're talking to one another and everything. So you're impacting one another. Successes of one hub will be the success of another, because you will learn from everybody's experiences, and you will bond, you will trade energy and utilize that energy to create something good. So I was concerned about, first of all, us doing things properly. Now we say, if you can build a good business, surely you can build a social enterprise. I mean, a big business is a lot more challenging. It's very selfish because it's profit oriented. Surely doing something out of love as opposed to doing something out of profit, it must be a lot easier to love. I mean, it's much harder to hate than to love, if you ask me, at the end of the day. So, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to decide to hug somebody, and it takes a couple of hours to decide whether to punch somebody in the face or not, And so creating an organization that could take those tenets that we had, create a plan, I believe in measurable results, and say, this is what we want to achieve, this is how we want to achieve it, this is the time frame for doing it, because it's not worth doing it if you don't get results out of it, was important to us. So we spend time researching how good foundations operate. What are their rules? What are the case studies of success? And that's what literacy does for us. It gives us the capacity to research. And we did a lot of research to find out how is it done? How have people who've done well in terms of giving done that right? And we created a structure that worked in terms of creating our goals, creating a team of people who could do it well, looking for people within the organization who had the capacity to deliver, and also were passionate people about the cause. And we said that we would do this, and then we would seed it with capital ourselves. And then we would use our foundation to go around the world and look for partners, okay? Partners to understand that we can help people better than others can because we do it professionally, and looking for them to share in our experience and support us in our endeavors. But by first creating the structure, then putting our own cash behind it, and then saying, let's go about it. Phase 1 was to adopt several schools. I'm sure the talks have probably told you a lot about that, and then refurbish them. And at the end of the day, you find that being able to change the lives of people was something as simple as fixing the windows, painting the school, putting a blackboard on, even making sure there was chalk. Dealing with the basics first, okay, and then it's a measurable result. It's a tick. It's primary 1. You pass, and then you go to the next level. You look towards, providing facilities, additional facilities. Then you look towards expanding the schools. Then you start looking towards teacher training, and then we suddenly decided where we reached the point we can now start creating. We've talked about information technology, being able to give schools the chance to even use a computer, and then there was no power anyway, so put a car battery on the floor, okay, and get the price of computers have collapsed. Every single time we change the system in the office, ship them out to the schools, do something, and get people in. And you start getting results, and all of a sudden it goes from 10 schools to 20 schools to 30 schools to 40 schools. Eventually, what I really like to see us do is to partner with people across Africa, take that same model, okay, and introduce it, and just show how you can be a good factor for change by investing very, very little compared to what you would do in your commercial life. And that's our little story when it comes to our foundation.
If I may just borrow the idea that you've brought on about measurable results and starting somewhere and then scaling up or going to the next level. You spoke about literacy and reading and writing. Some of the discussions we've had here over the last day and a half on education has been looking at behavioral competencies as well. We have young people who, but we also have young people who know how to read and write, but in terms of the critical thinking skills, understanding things like workplace etiquette, knowing how to present themselves, communicating their ideas clearly, succinctly, some of that is lacking. But from your perspective, could you speak to us a bit more about some skill sets that you find lacking in general, perhaps across Africa, maybe in Nigeria? What are some of those skill sets, perhaps behavioral competencies that are absolutely essential to start looking at as we go from looking at primary education to skills that can bring jobs for young people?
In general, I still see, in terms of skill sets, I don't think there's a fundamental deficit one way or the other. I think that we just have generally low standards, and we do need to accept that we have low standards. And the standards were not always as low as this. When I grew up, I went to a government secondary school. We had excellent teaching. We had five people from each state. It was an experiment to foster integration within Nigeria, and we have three main languages here and probably about over 200 sub-languages, and we all have different cultures, different ways of saying good morning and good night. And, some cultures you can marry 4 wives, some cultures it's really not acceptable. And the whole idea was to create integration, and that was a very good experiment, and then create standards. I think that increasingly the educational system on our continent needs to start with certainly us creating awareness for the fact that we have a poor educational system, and I've seen it deteriorate in Nigeria. But if the people who've had an education don't speak out, then how are those who never had a chance of education ever going to be able to communicate? And so it starts with us aggressively driving the point home that the standards have fallen. Now, when we do interviews in my office, for example, we get 40,000 applications and we take 25 graduate trainees every year, okay, who we kind of like fast track up the system, and they're our leaders of tomorrow. We have to do things as simple as, say, write a composition, like we did in primary school. Who are you? And you write like one page and you describe yourself. And the grammar is atrocious. They can't speak English, and it's not their fault. We had a lot of basics. The focus when we were growing up was not on fancy degrees. It was on basics, literacy, okay? The ability to read and write competently. And that's step one. Once people have literacy, then they can improve themselves. I'm a big champion of self-help, and a lot of people in the generation before me, okay, were products of self-help. But the difference was structures existed to help you with self-help, and I think that's what's lacking now. The government can't do it all. First of all, we need to ensure that they are aware, African governments are aware we have low standards. Second point is that we need to push them towards the perspective of saying, focus on the soft things, focus on the standards, let's have national curriculum, as Elsa was talking about. Let's have standards which people can aspire to, and get the private sector involved. When I say private sector, I don't mean large, massive conglomerates. No, okay? Every single community wants people to learn. If everybody contributes 1 naira, okay, a month, for example, or 2 naira a month, depending on the value of that community, you can create schools. You can create schools in the police barracks, you can create schools in the villages, you can create schools everywhere. But then we focus more on giving people the opportunity to create structure. And having helped people build structure, we then help them in the execution because they can't do it themselves. As the continent grows, as population explodes, the capacity for the public sector to truly influence, growth is going to become more and more limited on a daily basis. So our challenges are now magnified, and the only way governments can truly help us is by creating an enabling environment, of soft structure to enable people to do it. We all survive. We will wake up in the morning. Man is incredibly resilient, particularly African man and woman, they will survive, okay? And then how do you help them do better than they would have, okay, otherwise? And at the end of the day, I think we need to move away from the focus of the government. So, for example, in Nigeria, there's a big drive towards saying every one of those schools who the government said, oh, we're going to take over the church schools, we're going to take over the mosque schools, we're going to take over the private schools, give them back to the private sector, give them back to the churches, give them back to the mosques. The organized system of collecting charity, which they do during the services, just ensure the schools are properly policed. Okay, help them with curriculum, help them with the software. It's a much better investment for the government with their limited cash, okay, to focus on creating structure. And our resilience really will go a long way towards doing the rest.
Absolutely.
I actually like how you explain the power to be able to read and write and how that can improve self-help. And Jimmy asked a question which relates also to employment. For example, in Nigeria, 60% of Nigerian graduates are unemployed. And we hear this all the time. You don't have to wait to be hired by a company. You can be an entrepreneur, use your idea and get what you want. But one major challenge for young entrepreneurs is the fact that they don't have access to capital. What bold solutions can you tell a young entrepreneur with a very fantastic idea, with energy, with everything, but no financial push?
I think, first of all, I mean, you're never going to find capital. Even till today, I still say every day in the office that we have no access to capital for the things you want to do. I mean, we flare more gas in this country than is required to power the whole continent. Yet I don't have enough cash from the capital markets or for the debt markets to build all the gas pipelines I want to build. So that we don't have to be reliant on importing fuels, on candles and kerosene lanterns for electricity. You're never going to have enough capital, so forget about that. You know, you're going to also need to be innovative. The reason why an entrepreneur is that you see value where value exists but has been ignored, okay, or simply just not noticed, right? And you take whatever resources you have, however limited, and you start to build on that value. Now, it's one step at a time. You're never going to achieve it all in one day, right? So most of the businesses, the great businesses of this world started in garages. My business started in a garage. I had no capital. My mom gave me a little bit of money. She gave probably like 2,000 naira. My dad gave me like 3 grand. My brothers were laughing at me when I was just a kid, Wale wants to start a business. You know, and I bought a second-hand carpet, put it in the garage, moved the car we had out. I bought a second-hand air conditioner, I did it. Then I paid the nicer guy. When I saw him on my street, I ran to him, I gave him some little cash I had. I said, can you take this cable from my living room and do me an extension there privately? You know, and he did it for me privately. That's how we started, step by step. And I asked one relative, can I have a little bit of money? I have this idea. Somebody's going to trust you. And somebody's going to trust you, and you build on it. But, you know, never doubt yourself and in your own capacity. And everybody's going to laugh at you in the way. But the same people who laugh at you tomorrow will revere you for being able to be true to your self-worth and saying, this makes sense, I can make a difference, saying whatever aspect it is. When we had a chat with Abuja Hubs, I met a movie producer. And I said to myself, I didn't know we had such young movie producers in Nigeria. And he was very passionate about his work. He had done 1 or 2 movies and everything, documentaries, social documentaries. And I liked his drive and his ambition. And I said to myself, you know, giving an opportunity, I would love to support him and air some of his stuff so they can tell a story better as to what really is going on. You know? And I think that you're never going to have enough capital. You need to use unconventional means of raising capital amongst yourselves. Somebody has a good idea, there's a global hub here. Everybody can put whatever they can afford. Why can't you create a company? There are 100 shareholders in this room. You know, everybody probably could afford $100 an idea. So it's going to be unconventional, okay, use it. When the opportunity comes right, credibility and integrity is absolutely important. I mean, the first loan I had, I paid 10% a month. It was 120% per annum I paid. I was so happy anybody would lend me money in the first place. And I was the first guy, I woke up in the morning when I had the chance to go repay every month. I ran there because out of respect for the fact that somebody trusted me. And I noticed that every single time when I came back to them and said, oh, we had a slight problem, I can't pay this month, I'll pay next month. They'd actually give me more money. They said, look, don't worry, here's more cash. And I thought it was a bit confusing. That's something I'm doing right and doing wrong. You know, but you know, after a while, you learn to trust your gut feelings, trust your instincts, use them, and just keep driving. You will create the capital. Good ideas will always have capital follow them eventually. You know, the graveyard is full of business plans that never got executed because people just never had enough confidence in themselves or their self-worth to really push these things to the end, to really try and take them across the finish.
Okay, so right now we're going to take questions. Okay, we'll have the ladies all gingered up to ask questions now.
Yeah, I also had all the men.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Zainab Mahmoud. I'm from the Kano Hub. I'm going to say I think
we need to get into people's mindsets early in their lives. You know, I saw a picture today. They had a picture of a young youth, probably a guy was 17 years old, who tried to blow up a police station yesterday in, I think it was Damaturu. Okay. Now, looking at the picture, you knew the guy didn't know anything, right? Okay, he looked so confused, lost, bewildered. The first influence you get, whether it's positive or negative, okay, it's going to shape you, right? Okay. So if you grow up, okay, and you're born, and you happen to be born in a den of thieves, you will grow up believing that theft is actually an honorable way of earning a living, and that's the reality of life. So one of the key things I think we don't have a choice but to do is to bring back the same principle of driving civics as an early means of children understanding. I believe in bringing up people. There's a limit to what you can do when you have an existing problem. It's like illness anyway. Once it's advanced, it's advanced. You know, it tends to be the cost of fixing it, both in terms of human life and the ability to regenerate, is a lot more difficult than preventing it in the first place. I do believe that ensuring that we all drive that point home, that we need to create moral education in children from an early age to promote into religious, you know, issues to do with difference between right or wrong. Making sure people understand that there is hope is as important as them learning how to add or subtract or put words together to create a competition. You know, there has to be a return to the most fundamental values which do enable us to be able to sit in this room and actually pass judgments, okay, or create solutions. So it could be awareness, it could be one of the projects you take and say, okay, fine, how are we going to drive something with measurable returns that says that we are going to be able to take this point across institutions which can actually help to execute this and to have it as part of our fabric. It's something which we could create, for example, in our own way, in our own foundation. So, for example, we put in some extra effort regarding ensuring that the schools we adopt and the people we touch, indirectly and directly, there's a big component of moral education that is made part and parcel of the curriculum within the environment they are. So, for example, when we speak about governments creating standardized curriculum, it could be more a case of saying, well, you know, we want 15% of the curriculum to be this, or 20% to be this, such that there is that point being driven. I went through it myself. It was very, very big. In the federal government college I attended, from age 11, again, we had a big focus. We had a civics lesson twice a week, I think it was. Okay. In addition to doing that, we were also exposed to the ills that occurred outside Nigeria. So, for example, apartheid was something that was drummed into us at age 11 that is so evil, and their brothers and sisters dying in South Africa. So we grew up hating South Africa, I'll be honest with you. Because we didn't, I mean, when I say hating, we grew up hating the fact that there was in existence, okay, a country that could discriminate against certain people. And it created an expectation that young people wanted freedom across the continent, and eventually it came. You know, and I don't know what part we played or what role we played in the long term, but we knew and we understood, and I'm sure we influenced people directly or indirectly in that regard. I mean, we had a lot of South African kids who came to our schools on government exchange programs and everything, and we took special care of them because we knew that these were you know, these were our brothers and sisters who come from an environment where they didn't have the benefits we had. I mean, then we didn't really understand how prosperous South Africa was. I'm sure if we compared what our schools looked like with theirs, we probably would have had a change of mind.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
When it comes to energy, corporations and the ability for local corporations to expand and play a meaningful impact. One thing first is that there will be change, evolution is going to occur. So whether we like it or not, every single thing which you had foreign investors doing within your environment, as you grow and your environment becomes more sophisticated, you have better education, the opportunity for you to step in to fill those gaps will occur, okay? When I first started in the business 20 years ago, even the petrol retailing in Nigeria was done by multinationals, okay? And we got involved, and this is my first lesson, is get involved in whatever it is you want to do. We got involved, and I think the first real business opportunity I had in the oil sector was using a 1945-year-old tanker, which was so slow, and we used to make fun of it because it did 5 knots, and if the water if the tide was against us, the ship would almost go backwards. So we got involved with whatever means we could, okay? And we built a reputation for delivering fuel on time, and we borrowed money, we raised money in unconventional means, and we continued to expand our operations. In the process, we got sophisticated. I didn't know how to read a balance sheet. I bought an accounting for dummies. I read it, I understood. I did a lot of self-help, and I encourage everybody around us to do self-help in building our team. So there was a lot of self-help in the process, and we learned how to do things right. We went to the next level. And there's always support for you when you go to the next level. And the next level could be in form of entrepreneurial training, mentorship, which will come from all sorts of angles, but be willing to sit on the floor and learn and listen as to what other people's experiences are. And we're able to build an operation that when the privatization came, because those foreign investors were now selling their downstream companies, and the Nigerian government decided to also sell its interest in those downstream companies, we're able to create a consortium. Okay? We borrowed again and we acquired. So privatization came and we stepped in. Okay? Similarly, we were able to then raise capital the next level, and we started building the gas pipelines in Nigeria, which we still successfully do today. And as the foreign corporations that you mentioned, who have been developing oil resources on land, seek to expand offshore, for whatever reason, it's not just only about unrest that causes them to leave. It's very profitable. It's also to do with the fact that there are better opportunities. I mean, they say something about business. If you're not moving, okay, then you're failing. You've got to keep moving, driving your business. I mean, I can imagine you're not going to go to 2 shapers meetings without the next one being more interesting than the last one. If not, you lose your momentum, you lose your desire to want to be part of something. So clearly in business, it's no different. So we want to keep growing, and whenever opportunity comes, we jump on that opportunity. It's more invigorating for the people. It gives our staff and our team something better to look forward to. I mean, who wants to wake up in the morning and go do what they did last year and the year before? They want a new project, a new challenge, a new thing. And we're challenge junkies. We keep doing them, and we keep, ensuring that we approach every one of the opportunities we get with as much seriousness as the first one, and we invariably succeed. All we know, a lot of challenges, and there's something I also learned, which was never confuse, a clear sight of vision with a straight line of execution. There will always be bumps, along the line, and that's one of the key things which we've done, which we keep, which we accept. So ConocoPhillips is a big acquisition. When we first announced it was $1.7 billion on 12 months ago. The market told us we were crazy, that we couldn't afford it. And so we knew that the reaction would be negative. We also doubted to a certain extent that our capacity to do so, but our doubt did not overwhelm our desire to achieve it. So we asked for 9 months to raise the capital. We went on a global roadshow telling everybody, just like you said, what's going on in Nigeria. There are these resources. The production can be doubled. The foreign companies are focusing on the offshore. We've got solutions, local solutions to reduce the pipeline theft, to increase it. We have a foundation. I mean, our foundation was actually a big part of our presentation. Because people wanted to know that how do you ensure that you can get community buy-in in what you do? And we said, look, we're going to, first of all, create educational opportunities in every community where we drill for. Okay, we're going to take the gas that we exist and create local electricity to ensure that community had 24-hour electricity such that they would be interested in ensuring we succeed because their lives are better. We're going to ensure that we can train them, hire them, and put them through such that people who otherwise don't have skills, okay, even at the most basic will become welders or fitters or engineers technicians to help us do it, and we achieved every one of those things. So the opportunity exists, and we know that even after Conoco concludes and we integrate the company, okay, it's going to be something even bigger and better for us to aspire to, and that's really what we are about. And it's that energy which we bring to the table, and the capacity to consistently want to execute in a measurable fashion, you know, that gives us the desire and the life to want to take on new challenges and deliver those new challenges.
All right, at this point, I know we have more questions, but we're short for time. Thank you so much, Mr. Wale Tinubu, for always being out there at the top and for always supporting us as a community. We really appreciate that. For every time that you take out time from a busy schedule to be on a call with us or to come for any of our programs, we're very, very grateful for that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
A round of applause for Mr. Wale.